courtesy of the lab, here is Chronicles of Riddick, Assault on Dark Athena.
They say hope begins in the dark, but most just flail around in the blackness, searching for their destiny.
You know, back in '04 when I first played Chronicles of Riddick Escape from Butcher Bay, I ended up saying for many years after that Butcher Bay was one of the greatest first-person shooters I've ever played. To this day I still hold this belief, so when I heard about Assault on Dark Athena I was completely pumped and ready for an insane sequel. It seems though that I waited too long to play this game. I played it just like last year actually, and clearly I paid the price for my tardiness. But taking that into consideration, I'll try to be as objective and unbiased as I can be.
The darkness, for me, is where I shine.
Let's start with what I believe are the good aspects of Assault on Dark Athena. First, the story. The story is a good one if you're into the whole pitch black and Chronicles of Riddick thing. It's played out really well by Vin Diesel. As we know, he plays the invincible tough guy role really well. Sometimes overdone in my opinion, but still good for who can tolerate it. In Assault on Dark Athena, Riddick has been captured by the Dark Athena, led by Captain Rivas. As in the first, you can use stealth, hand-to-hand combat, and guns blazing to get through this ordeal.
In the end, everybody bleeds the same.
I give more kudos to the voice acting. Now I said Vin Diesel did a great job, but he's not the only one. Basically, everybody came together to deliver a truly A-list experience. I'd expect no less actually. Escape from Butcher Bay was top-notch.
Hello?
Kid, talk to me.
Riddick? I knew you'd come back.
Now here's another good point of Assault on Dark Athena, the build-up. But this is kind of funny because the overall build-up in this game drops into the thumbs up category as well as the thumbs down. I'll get into that later, but for now, the way the game shaped up over time was greatly appreciated.
What an extraordinary girl you found, Riddick. Sneaking around my ship like an adorable mini version of you.
Let me go over into the acceptable points of Dark Athena. The points that almost missed the mark but managed to keep its head above water. First, the fact that Escape from Butcher Bay was included. This is a great bonus for anyone who never played it and wanted to test the original first. It's also good for you gamers who enjoy playing the same game over a few more times. Personally for me, once it's done, it's done. No additional content, alternate endings, nothing will let me play a game like this again after the credits roll. But that's just me. But other than the fact that you get to play the original, it was also remastered in HD, so that's like the cherry on top.
I should hide the body. Someone might notice.
Acceptable was also the multiplayer. Acceptable because the way I see it, you might as well throw it in. The game is a first-person shooter, the action is good enough, and the way it was presented was also good enough. You'll be lucky to find anyone online playing today though. But if you do, that'll give you even a bit more for your dollar. Now the lack of hints. I don't know if this was an option I could have turned on, or if there were none because of the difficulty level I played on. But this, again, was an okay addition. Added a bit more realism and a reasonable challenge to the game. A few times I ended up stuck wondering what next to do, but things always worked out eventually.
I know where a ship is, Riddick. The computer told me.
Now here's where I revisit the whole build-up thing and the two ways it'll cut you. I already explained why it was good. But then here's the bad part. When this game just starts up, like the first 2 hours or so, depending on how you play it, it really drags along. Seriously, the game was painful to continue in the beginning. I had to park it for a while, then when I felt up to it, gave it another shot, until I got to that oh moment, you know? Yeah, it picked up nicely, but if you're not patient, you'll never last long enough to figure that out.
May swift and certain death befall anyone who stands in my way.
So on that note, let's get to the down and dirty. The elements of Dark Athena that will cause many not to play it all the way through. I mean, other than the fact that it's like as old as dirt by now. First, let's visit the graphics. Even though it's a dated title, the visuals were not impressive. Some thought they were at the time, but based on how mind-blowing Escape from Butcher Bay was in '04, those are the standards I'm judging it by. Relatively speaking, it could have been better. Other '08 titles were significantly better. Now the stealth. What were these guys thinking? Developer Starbreeze messed up big time here. This game was not designed for stealth. Yeah, it was probably a good idea on paper, but the mechanics in this game don't work well enough for sneaking about. Riddick just feels like someone who wants to be a ninja, but will never be. Your character has way too many limitations to be in a stealth game. With awkward movements, the inability to properly look around corners, jump to certain places, roll and so on, it just didn't work out well enough. and clearly the stages weren't created to aid these shortcomings either. A mess in my opinion. There were times where I knew a particular stage was set for stealth, but I just came out guns blazing anyway and ran through it, and oddly enough that actually worked. The game really had a dated feel to it, really dated, and I don't mean dated in an 08 kind of way. The game felt really close to the 04 game Escape from Butcher Bay. It seems like the devs were trying really hard to maintain that feel or just didn't know any better. But take for example the cover system. Now to be perfectly honest with you, I'm the kind of gamer who prides myself as being pretty seasoned. I know my way around pretty much any genre and don't ever see the need to read instructions, and maybe this is where I went wrong with Dark Athena. It took me a while to realize this game actually had a cover system, and that's because of the overall controller design. But even when I figured it out, it was still inadequate. Another low point, the checkpoint system. Few and far in between.
Another survivor? Let's have some fun with this one.
Then another thing that reminds me of how dated this game's design is would be the health recovery system. You have these life bars. You take damage, they go down. If you take cover, it goes up but not completely. It only goes up completely if you visit a health station. Now one might argue that video games have been watered down over the years. That back in the days of Contra you couldn't just wait for your wounds to heal like Wolverine then get back in the game. But to this I say, forget that. Get with the evolution. There are certain elements from the old school days that I do not miss, and I'm not feeling the health recovery system in Dark Athena. Primitive and not appreciated, especially since there's so many other factors to this game that works against you. Like the useless weapons and the fact that once again we have a character that's too cool to sprint for his life. Yes, Sir Riddick is way too cool to run, unfortunately. These guys need to play some Battlefield or Killzone, I mean seriously. But as for the weapons, once you grab hold of the Scar, you might never want to put it down because that's like the most effective weapon in the game. And it's really not that great anyway, and that in itself speaks volumes. Look, Chronicles of Riddick, Assault and Dark Athena is what it is. Not the worst game I've played last year, but one I could have easily done without and only bought because I was a fan of the first. The lab gives Assault and Dark Athena a 6 out of 10.
I have no mercy left for you.